Hello, I'm Sarah Susanka, and this is US Modernist Radio.
Mama don't allow no architecture around here. Mama don't allow no architecture around here. Oh, I don't care what Mama don't allow, gonna draw mine modern anyhow. Mama don't allow no architecture around here.
Welcome to US Modernist Radio, where we talk and laugh with people who enjoy, own, create, dream about, preserve, love, and hate modernist architecture, the most exciting and controversial buildings in the world. Show your support by reviewing us on iTunes or visiting US Modernist's massive mid-century modern archives at usmodernist.org. Today, US Modernist Radio welcomes Los Angeles architecture guide Laura Massino. And from Acme, Pennsylvania, where the coyote buys his dynamite to blow up the Roadrunner, serial modernist Heather Papinchak. And now the guy who was just about to call Charlie Rose to be on his show, well, when that was somehow no longer a good idea, it's your host, George Smart.
Hi, folks. In about 2 weeks, US Modernist Radio will be at the Architecture and Design Film Festival in New York, recording shows for our podcast going out in December, January, and February. This is the 10th year of the festival, and director Kyle Bergman always does a great job curating the best new architecture and design films from all over the world. Join me at the Cineopolis, Chelsea, 260 West 23rd Street. I'll be there October 16 through 19. Support for U.S. Modernist Radio comes from Realtor Angela Roll. In her ongoing imaginary adventure, modernist agent Angela Roll was on one of the escalators at the Atomium in Brussels, built for the 1958 World's Fair. The secret plans for the White House Situation Room, designed by Eero Saarinen, have been missing since 1974, and Angela is to meet Peter Paul Poirot, folk singer and great-grandson of Belgium's most famous detective Hercule.
Ooh.
It's elementary, says Peter, and whispers the identity of the plan thief in her ear. That's brilliant, says Angela, and going back on the escalator, she sends it in reverse at high speed, inducing a magnetic shift in the atomium and propelling her back in space to the time of the heist, August 7th, 1974.
Oh.
Catching an embarrassed Richard Nixon, who confesses to Angela, "I'm in a bit of trouble and have to resign tomorrow. And Pat really likes the decor of the Situation Room. So, well, you know how insistent spouses can be." Nixon hands over the plans and the case is closed. Back in 2018, Angela uses her architectural training and quick thinking to specialize in modernist houses, advising buyers and sellers on everything from appropriate renovation to the time-space continuum. Reach her at angelaroll.com, that's ROEHL, or 919-995-0550. All right, let's get some guests going today. We've got a great show with two wonderful people from opposite coasts. Both specialize in a different area of architectural tourism, one in California and the other in Pennsylvania. Hey, Tom, What do Kathleen Turner, Salman Rushdie, and Paula Abdul all have in common?
I don't know. Maybe they've been banned somewhere. I mean, Salman Rushdie, he got in trouble for the satanic verses, but was there a fatwa on Paula Abdul?
I think Simon Cowell has one out in Paula now.
Yeah, bad.
Just kidding, Paula. These luminaries share a birthday with our first guest, who has certainly not been banned anywhere, Laura Massino. I have known Laura since 2014, and she has been leading these incredible architecture tours, modernist and non-modernist, one van load at a time, since 2000. She is a prolific author of a series called Architecture Tour LA Guidebooks, which includes the volumes Frank Gehry Architecture, Pasadena, Downtown, Hancock Park, Hollywood, West Hollywood, and Beverly Hills, and my favorite hood, Silver Lake. From the West Coast, welcome to the show, Laura.
Thank you, George. Great to be with you. Also, Paul McCartney was born on my birthday.
We missed Paul.
Wow.
How did we do that?
We didn't call him.
We didn't call Paul. He was unavailable for the show.
He never calls me either. He doesn't call me either, so don't worry.
Our next guest is Heather Papinchak, co-owner of Polymath Park in Acme, Pennsylvania. Now, this sounds like a great place to go to do your algebra homework, but no, it's something completely different and wonderful. Heather and her husband, Tom, the world's most attractive man, holy cow, have you seen this guy? Are serial modernists. They don't just collect chairs and art like you do. They collect entire houses associated with the architect Frank Lloyd Wright, even moving some houses across the country.
Wow.
To create a fantastic 130-acre touring experience within an hour of Wright's other landmarks, Falling Water and Kentuck Knob. They won the prestigious Laurel Highlands Visitors Bureau 2015 Champions of Tourism Trailblazer of the Year Award. How do they get that even all in the trophy? Presented by Tom's sister, barely edging out the Wild Kingdom animal head decor of the lovely Holiday Inn Express Donegal just down the road. Hey, it's a small town. From the East Coast, welcome, Heather.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Laura, let's start with you. Frank Lloyd Wright is still considered the most famous architect in history, but since he died in 1959, some people may not know about him, his career, or his legacy. Who was this guy?
Well, Frank Lloyd Wright is certainly considered to be the most important American architect of the 20th century because of what he was doing, how he was thinking. He was really thinking the way no one else was. He was born in Wisconsin, but had his practice in Chicago, outside of a suburb of Chicago, and he was just a true original, and he was extremely prolific as well. That's what made him important. The other thing was that he had a school, and he educated generations of architects in his philosophy, and still going. The school still exists. So that's another thing that made him important, was his influence.
Where was he based?
Oak Park, Illinois, the suburb of Chicago. That's where he was for most of his life, and then at Taliesin in Arizona, spent the end of his life. That was where he had a branch of the school that originated in Wisconsin.
Did Wright spend much time in L.A.?
Not really. He only built about 8 structures here, but his son was here. Frank Lloyd Wright Jr. was here, and he was actually more prolific than his father in Los Angeles. So Wright didn't spend much time here. He did some work here in the 20s, and then some work a little later than that, 1939, another house, and then 1954 was the most recent structure that he built in Los Angeles.
What are some of the buildings that he did there?
Well, his first one was the Hollyhock House. Hollyhock House was designed for Eileen Barnsdale, a wealthy oil heiress, and that was completed in 1920. And that was his first project in Los Angeles. It was important because of that it was his first in Los Angeles. It brought him here. It was also important because it brought other architects here, like Rudolf Schindler, the modernist born in Vienna. He had immigrated to Chicago to work with Wright, and then Wright sent him here to supervise construction on the Hollyhock House. So that was important for that. Also, Frank Lloyd Wright Jr. worked on the Hollyhock House. Richard Neutra did as well. So that was very important, bringing him here. In late, 1918, I think he was here, and that house completed in 1920.
And Neutra and Schindler were not just clerks. I mean, they went on to significant careers.
Yeah, they were very prolific here. They are the ones that we consider the ones who are responsible for bringing modernism to Los Angeles. So they, too, were very important, but had it not been for Wright, they may not have come here.
Neutra and Schindler did, hundreds of buildings there?
Yeah, I think Neutra did about 200 structures in his lifetime, not all of them in Los Angeles, but most of them. And Schindler's output was less than that, but still significant. I don't know the exact number.
And you take people to see these houses, right?
I do, yeah. And on my Silver Lake tour, which is a neighborhood that is
Silver Lake.
East of Hollywood and west of downtown, there is a large concentration of both the work of Schindler and Neutra. Schindler was based in West Hollywood, but much of his work in Silver Lake, and Richard Neutra was based in Silver Lake. His home and studio were in Silver Lake, so he was quite prolific in that area.
And then John Lautner came along a little later.
He did. He was really the next generation. Schindler died in 1954. Neutra died in 1970. Schindler died in 1994. Lautner died in 1994. So he was really the next generation, building upon what they had done as modernists, but really taking it to the next level. And also having the opportunity to use materials and technologies that had developed after World War II, which Neutra and Schindler didn't have at their disposal to the same degree.
Heather, we're going to talk a lot about Polymath Park, but I'm interested in how did you and Tom get into modernist architecture and decide to move to the cutting-edge metropolis of Acme, Pennsylvania?
Well, we actually moved into what is now the restaurant on the property, Treetops. We turned our house into the restaurant, but we moved there, ironically, to get away from people and enjoy nature. And so that's how we kind of got to be available to learn about Peter Bernstein, who was the architect who studied under Mr. Wright, who designed the Balter and Bloom house that are on the property. And we had the opportunity to purchase those homes in 2004. And we really didn't have a plan, George. We kind of say this chose us. Our plan was, as I said, to enjoy nature and our family and kind of get away and decompress from the busyness of life when we were home. And it's kind of quite the opposite now. So we've decided to embrace it.
Were these two houses by Berenson, were they on the same lot as the house you moved into? How did that work?
Yes. Well, so the house that we moved into was actually a wedding gift for the Bloom family's son. So it is on the same tract of land. It was on 3 acres by itself, adjacent to the 130 acres that the Balter and Bloom family purchased together from a farmer. And the Balter and Bloom families were both Pittsburgh business owners, and they were just friends, and they bought this land together to kind of come to the mountains and enjoy nature and embrace the architecture of Peter Bernstein.
And the whole place is called Polymath Park. It's 130 acres of architecture nerd heaven. I hope everyone will put on their travel list. But what does polymath mean exactly?
Multiple intellects and higher intelligence. So really that is describing Peter Bernstein, and now Frank Lloyd Wright is kind of how we're looking at it. We want people to see it as an architectural park, and like you said earlier, people do sometimes come there and think that it's a park with swings and that it's a state park.
Or a park with rides.
Right.
Where's the roller coaster?
We'll have to do that someday. But it's really an amazing experience to meet people from all over the world who, have the same passion that we do to preserve architecture and history, and come and actually, as you said, tour the homes and stay with us in one of the houses and kind of get that experience. It's a whole different thing than actually being not rushed through a house on a tour, but to actually embrace the house as if it was your own for the night. It's kind of an amazing experience.
There are 2 famous Wright houses nearby. Tell us about those.
Yeah, so we are a half an hour from Falling Water. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of that before.
No. Tom, have you ever heard of that one?
I've been there.
No.
Yep.
Yeah, so half an hour from Falling Water, and we're about 45 minutes from Kentuck Knob. Now, Falling Water is, I'm sure most people know, was designed for the Kaufman family, also Pittsburghers, business owners. And then
Is that what they call them, Pittsburghers?
Pittsburghers,
Pittsburghers.
Yeah.
I never heard that. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
That's our lingo. So then Kentuck Knob was designed for the Hagen, who owned an ice cream store in Uniontown. And they were, of course, friends with the Kaufmans. And also the Balter and Bloom families ran in the same circle as the Kaufmans. So that's how they were inspired to have more than just a simple cabin in the woods. They wanted something architectural. And these homes were always private. Balter and Bloom houses were private until Tom and I purchased them and decided to create this Polymath Park, if you will, and have people tour and have the overnight stay experience.
So there's so much they can do. They can have dinner at your restaurant. They can tour the houses. They can stay overnight.
Yes.
Can they stay overnight in the houses?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. Laura, Los Angeles, it's the movie and TV capital of the world. What came first, The industry or the great architecture?
Oh, the industry did. The film industry has been in Los Angeles for over 100 years, and that certainly had an influence on the architecture in a number of ways. One is that there were very creative people here, and they tended to be interested in new ideas. Certainly modernism was a new idea when most of what was being built, let's say in the 1920s, was the Spanish style, the English Tudor revival style, that kind of thing. Modernism comes along about the same time, and it was not like anything people had really seen here. So it was quite shocking, but there were a number of people who were very receptive to it. And the other thing about the movie industry is that there was money circulating here from that industry. And, Schindler and Neutra needed clients with money. So that was part of the importance of the film industry here. And then, of course, TV, music industry. Los Angeles is really a company town for entertainment. And that has had an influence on the architecture.
Well, we have documented about 4,000 houses in Los Angeles, and I'm always surprised, really, about how few of them seem to be associated with celebrities. Did celebrities not warm to that style particularly?
Not really. No, the celebrities generally wanted something more of the European revival look. Spanish style was extremely popular here. It is without a doubt the most ubiquitous architectural form in Los Angeles, having to do with our heritage. The city of Los Angeles was founded by the Spanish in 1781. So that was appropriate. It also suits our Mediterranean climate. And that's what most people wanted. It's a very romantic kind of a style, too. You kind of know how to live in those houses, whereas the modernist houses, they were for more discerning people, people that really understood them, and that was not the masses. The modernism was not as popular as the Spanish style or the English Tudor revival style, also very popular here in the 1920s, European-derived. Of course, modernism comes from Europe as well, but we just hadn't seen much of it here when it first appeared. The work of Schindler was quite shocking, and most people didn't like it. And certainly the Hollywood people, for the most part, were not enthralled with modernism.
So what kind of people were attracted to this?
Educators, doctors, people like that. Richard Neutra designed the Lovell House for Dr. Lovell, one of his best works in Los Angeles. It was built in 1929. So people like that. Also, Dr. Lovell, in particular, the client, believed that architecture affected your health and well-being, as it certainly does. But that was why he wanted modernism, because he knew that architecture affected your health and well-being. And he thought that a modernist house did that better than any other kind.
How's that house doing, by the way? I hear various reports that it's not doing so well.
Yeah, I have not been up to see it in a long time. You unfortunately can't see too much of it from the street because trees have grown around it. But I was probably last in it maybe 5 or 10 years ago, last inside. And it was okay at that time, but I don't know its current state.
Okay.
Still there.
We'll have to check into that. Maybe one of our listeners will write us and tell us. Heather, when you moved to Pennsylvania and you bought this house and then you bought the Balter and the Bloom houses, and then you really ramped up your game, you bought a house of a different sort. Tell us about that.
So in 2006, we had the opportunity to purchase the Frank Lloyd Wright designed Duncan House that was originally in Lisle, Illinois. And that transpired because a gentleman from Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and a group of investors actually had acquired the home. They had brought it back in 4 storage trailers to Johnstown, PA, and the plan was to put it into a botanical garden setting in Johnstown, and those plans fell through. And when that happened, they had to look for an alternate place in this area that we call the Laurel Highlands, which we are in, obviously, and they had to find somewhere to rebuild this house. So they actually originally contacted Tom and I about leasing land from us, and they thought it would be great to have a master and apprentice on the same property. And that's kind of how it started. We really thought, okay, we're going to lease land. They'll build the house. They'll run it. And then we thought, of course, we could do overnight stays in the Peter Bernstein homes. Then plans fell through. His investors ended up pulling out, and so he sent an email that said, would you be interested in purchasing the Duncan house? And I'll be honest, I almost deleted the email and didn't tell Tom because I thought, how the heck are we going to do that?
It's like, oh, no.
Yeah. Because I knew, of course, Tom would want to do it. I mean, he's a visionary. And so we kind of took a leap of faith, and we were able to get a loan. And Tom and a very small crew rebuilt the house in 1 year. So in 2007 is when we opened up Polymath Park for tours and stays.
And you're doing that again now with another Wright house?
Yes, it is. It's actually called the Lindholm House, or Mantilla, which is Finnish for of the pines. That's what Mr. Wright called the house. It was in Cloquet, Minnesota. It was actually gifted to our nonprofit, which is Usonian Preservation, which we've created for experiential education purposes here at Polymath Park now. But the Lindholm House is considered a Grand Usonian. It's from 1952, and it was in the same family for 3 generations. So we have all of the original furnishings as well with the home, which is pretty amazing. So again, Tom and his crew, very small crew of 3 guys, are rebuilding the house as we speak now at Polymath Park. So it will be the 4th house for stays as well as tours.
That's amazing.
It is amazing.
You know, some couples collect Beanie Babies, and you guys.
I remember those.
Laura, your company, Architecture Tours LA, specializes in driving tours of neighborhoods around Los Angeles. What sets your tours apart from the big buses that people can jump on and see the town?
Well, we drive in a minivan. It's me driving and me talking. I'm an architectural historian, so the tours are focused on architecture, history, and culture, and we can only take up to 5 people. So they're very small groups, and if you know the hills of Silver Lake in particular, the roads are very narrow, so you really couldn't fit a larger bus up there. So that allows us to see as much as we can see that's kind of hidden in the hills. And also it's a more intimate kind of a group setting and like-minded individuals. And what's really different about what we do is that we focus on small groups of people and are taking our tours on a daily basis.
I recently watched the very old TV show, 50 years old now, called Dragnet.
Oh, yeah.
Which was set in Los Angeles. And back then they were complaining about the traffic. How is it now?
Right.
And the smog.
Well, it's definitely worse, for sure. But, you know, when you live in a city of 10 million people, you know, you kind of have to expect that. I shouldn't say city. The city of L.A. is only 4 million, but the L.A. County is 10 million, with 88 cities comprising L.A. County. You know, you have to deal with it. And it's something that we think about all the time. It's what you deal with when you live in a big city.
Are there any rookie mistakes you can advise people not to make in L.A., like, you know, here's one route you never want to be on at 5 o'clock?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, most of the freeways you do not want to be on at that time. But the biggest tip I could give is just settle in, put the radio on or whatever, and just, you know, enjoy the ride, because there's not much you can do about it. If you want to live here, that is one of the things that we all deal with. And be patient.
Yeah, easier said than done, but good advice.
Didn't road rage originate in Los Angeles?
Oh, it may have. That's not something we're proud of, but it may have.
Maybe San Diego.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. San Diego's more laid back. So here's a question for both of you. Has Brad Pitt visited either of you yet? We know that pre-divorce, he and Angelina were at Fallingwater near Heather.
Yeah. He hasn't called me yet. I'm waiting for his call. He lives nearby, you know. I mean, I'm waiting for his call. So I've been waiting for that call for about 18 years since I started doing the tours.
Brad, are you listening?
Yep.
Give us a call.
Hey, Paul McCartney, tell Brad to call.
Yeah.
Yes.
We did have Will Ferrell stay with us at Polymath Park. That was very interesting. But no Brad Pitt.
Yeah, he's sort of the token celebrity architecture fan right now.
Yeah.
Oh, is he?
Mm-hmm. Given his work trying to build houses down in New Orleans.
Oh, right.
But as far as I know, he's not commissioned an architect to do anything for him. He's always been buying houses off the rack, so to speak.
Yeah. He lives in a beautiful craftsman house in the Hollywood Hills.
Oh. Is Will Ferrell a modernist or Frank Lloyd Wright fan? Or
I think he is. I think he brought his wife with him, and it was a gift to her to visit the area and Fallingwater and Kentuck Knob as well. So it was very, very nice to meet both him and his wife.
Another question for both of you. I know that when couples go places together, they don't necessarily share the same passion or interest about the subject matter. So when you get a couple in your respective tours, one who's really into it and one who's just sort of tolerating being there, how do you make it an enjoyable experience for both of them?
I think it's by humor. I just make people laugh and want to enjoy the time that they're spending at Polymath Park. And you can tell who's into it and who is, as we say, has drank the Cherokee Red Kool-Aid and who is being dragged along. So I think there is something, for everyone, especially embracing nature where we are and just kind of enjoying being disconnected from their cell phones and the internet and embracing time with each other.
And what I do on the tours is I try to draw in the couple, the part of the couple who's not so much interested, is maybe just along there for the ride. Try to draw them into it, and usually by the end of the tour, they say, "Wow, I never looked at architecture like this before." They really are engaged, and that's also something with the small group that I can do. It's very personal, it's a very intimate experience. And hopefully by the end of the tour, they're a convert.
So in Los Angeles, Laura, how does it work? I mean, given all the traffic that we talked about, do people meet you at some central location, like in the neighborhood tour you're doing, or do you go pick them up? Or how does it function operationally?
Each tour, I have 6 different neighborhood tours, and each tour meets at a specific location in the area of that tour. And so we all meet there, and people get there by car, by bus, by metro. We have a metro system here. Or by Uber, whatever, walking, however they get there. And then we end the tour at the same place. So that's the way we do it here. And then it works out well. We stay in that neighborhood, and that's been working fine for 18 years.
And you do it with a 5-passenger minivan?
That's right. Minivan has 2 sunroofs and lots of good visibility, strong air conditioning, which you need, especially in our summers. And it's very comfortable, very roomy. So everybody has a lot of room and a lot of visibility. And on most of the tours, we do jump out and get a little bit closer, look a little bit closer at some of the architecture where it's possible. The tours really do provide an overview of those neighborhoods. So it's a good way to get to know the cities. Even if you're not really interested in architecture per se, it's a good way to get to know the cities because we go into the history of how things are formed, who lives here, what it's all about, that kind of thing.
One building I loved seeing, although not modernist, is the Lewis Bradbury building downtown. Tell us about that.
Yeah. The Bradbury building is one of our true gems. It dates from 1893. It was built for Lewis Bradbury, who made his fortune in mining, and designed by George Wyman, who was not a trained architect when he designed it, was a draftsman in the office of an architect named Sumner Hunt. And that building is just incredibly beautiful in size, a late Victorian era with a glass roof and lots of wrought iron that was made in France. It was displayed at the Chicago World's Fair in 1893 before it was installed in the building in Los Angeles. And it has been impeccably preserved. In 1991, there was a full restoration done on that building. And that was fortuitous because 1994, we had the Northridge earthquake, which registered 6.8 on the Richter scale.
Oh, yeah.
And that building, being built in 1893, was comprised of brick construction. And brick doesn't fare so well in earthquakes, so thankfully that building had been restored before that and survived the earthquake okay. It's also the backdrop for the movie, the first Blade Runner movie, as well as many other movies.
Oh, wow. And it's got a glass roof, you said.
Yes, it does. It's like an atrium space in the middle. It's quite beautiful, kind of golden tones inside. And it's one of the few surviving office buildings from the late 19th century, 1893.
And that's part of your downtown tour?
It is, yeah. We do get out on the downtown tour and go into that building.
And I can't quite recall the name. What is the name of that really nice modernist church downtown?
The Cathedral of Our Lady of the Angels?
Yes.
The new one from 2002, designed by Jose Rafael Maneo, who was an architect based in Madrid. Yeah, that's quite forward-thinking. When it was first built, most of the people in Los Angeles did not like it because it didn't look like a traditional cathedral. But, you have to kind of move on in the 21st century and maybe think in terms of the future. It does have all the characteristics of a cathedral. It has a bell tower, has a long entryway, it has all of the traditional characteristics, but it doesn't look like a traditional cathedral.
Maybe they need a hunchback.
Maybe. That'll do it.
Ringing the bell up at top.
Right.
Heather, how do people find you? Are they planning this in advance, or are they like on their way to Falling Water and they go, wait a second, what is that?
Well, we've actually partnered with Falling Water in 2016 to sell our tour tickets, and we're also on their website for lodging. So I think that would be the main way that people find us, aside from other advertising that we're doing, in different areas. But our partnership with them has been a huge blessing for us, so that people aren't just, as you said, oh, wait a minute, we can do something else, but they're already on their way out of town and it's too late to come and visit us. So it's really been great to kind of also be able to use the resources that the Western PA Conservancy offers to us. Not resources in a monetary sense, but as far as staff development and that kind of thing. So it's been a great partnership for us.
North Carolina Modernist sends a group up there every year, and we love going to Polymath Park. And when people leave, they go like, I just can't believe this place is here.
Yeah, it's kind of a hidden gem. I mean, even after 10 years, well, going on 11 years. And you know what? Tom and I kind of like it that way because we want people to feel like they are a part of Polymath Park, like something is going on here. And two everyday people have made this happen. And so it really is different than going on a tour to Falling Water or Kentuck Knob. I mean, we're hands-on. We're there all the time, every day. And people are able to talk to us and kind of pick Tom's brain. And it's so nice to actually get the feedback from the visitor who actually thanks us for preserving architecture. And that's pretty amazing to have that.
Well, Laura, speaking of preserving architecture, are there any modernist houses in Los Angeles that are endangered right now we should be looking after?
Well, without naming names, there is one house designed by Richard Neutra in the Neutra colony that is in disrepair. And it has not been designated a historic cultural monument. That's the designation that we have in the city of Los Angeles. It has been altered to some degree as well, and I'm a little worried about that house. So that one I will be keeping an eye on. But without that designation, the owners can do whatever they want to these houses. So we're hoping that we get a lot of good owners when these houses change hands, which has happened with the architecture of Richard Neutra lately. In the past few years, we've gotten excellent owners who are buying the houses because of what they are and restoring them. But there is one house in that area of Silver Lake, very close to Richard Neutra's own home, which is owned by Cal Poly Pomona, one of our universities. And that I'm a little worried about that one.
Well, if there's anything we can do, please sound the alarm.
I will.
Well, Laura and Heather, thank you so much for spending time with us today. It's really a pleasure to talk with both of you, and I hope that folks will go out and visit you on your respective coasts and see what you have to show them.
Thank you so much.
Yes, Heather, next time I'm in Pennsylvania, I'm going to come and visit you.
That sounds awesome, and hopefully some January or February I will get over to you.
Thanks for listening. US Modernist Radio is underwritten by Angela Roll, your special agent for Modernist Houses, 919-995-0550. Okay, take us out, Tom.
Visit usmodernist.org to listen to past shows and access 2.1 million pages of classic 20th century architecture magazines, all completely free. US Modernist Radio is produced by Soundtracks Recording Studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. Our theme song is performed by George Smart and Robinson Earl. Cinda Miata Stratamini.
Cinda Miata.
Not her real name. Research guest from her new villa in Italy. US Modernist Radio is a production of Triangle Modernist Archive, a nonprofit educational organization for the documentation, preservation, and promotion of modernist residential design. I'm Tom Guild. George and I will be back in 2 weeks with another sunrise, sunset, yin and yang, fire and ice, East Coast, West Coast, time-traveling edition of US Modernist Radio.